Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and obviously please put each of these items in an appropriate folder. I'm just going to skip over that because I don't really have a place to put them. But you know, everything related to each other, put it in the appropriate place. Don't just dump it in your content browser because your content browser becomes a mess real quick and it's not very good practice. So I talked over that, but effectively right click, go to user interface, and we're going to go to a widget blueprint. Widget blueprints are things you can have displayed on the screen. So let's get that. So let's rename it. So WBP for widget blueprint underscore code lock. Code lock. Very good. So what do we want? Now, I spent a little bit of time on this for myself. I'm probably not going to spend as much time on this one. It's going to be a little bit rough around the edges, but I'm going to show you most of what I did. So what do we want? What I'm probably going to do is I'm just going to get a quick reference up of what it looks like, just so I don't make a mess of it completely. There we go. So start off with a canvas panel, and we're going to do a size box so then we can specify how big we want it to be. I'm going to do width and height overrides, and for my width and my height I'm going to go for, I think, about maybe 400 wide, and let's do size to content so we can see it, and then maybe 500 high, something like that. That should be fine. Then we're going to do an overlay. Now, an overlay allows you to stack multiple things on top of each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the entire background a black background just to get it started. So I'm using an image, select the image, and I guess we could rename this to BG for background. And I'm just going to change the color and opacity down to black, and then I'm going to set the fill horizontally and fill vertically. So there we go. We've got a solid black background. From that, I'm going to add a vertical box. So back down to panels, add a vertical box to the, I think, yeah, to the overlay. And then what the vertical box, we're going to go fill horizontally. And I don't think I want to fill vertically. I don't, probably. Okay, so at the top, what we want is we're going to want the sort of screen area. So for that, I'm actually going to do another overlay. So you'll see that as put it in the top. Now, because the overlay allows us to stack different things on top, I'm actually going to chuck in another image just to give a bit of colour. So another image there, fill horizontally, and then I'm going to change the colour to, I don't know, like a nice blue like that. Now, to give it sort of like a nicer appearance, I'm going to go into the brush, and on the draw as, instead of image, I'm going to do rounded box, and I want to give it a bit of padding. So let's give it sort of 10 padding, and you'll see that that gives you sort of like this nice rounded effect. And to be honest, I think I want a little bit of padding on. Maybe when I put the text in it, it's going to be a little bit bigger. But effectively, the screen needs a text. So the next thing to put inside this image, or the overlay, should I say, is going to be a text. And I don't think that's quite worked out as I expected. So my text has gone in my vert box rather than in my overlay. So there we go. So the text itself is going to be center aligned. So center horizontally and center vertically. And do we want a bit of padding on the text? Maybe. Let's see. I added 5 padding to the text. So just add 5 padding, and it doesn't really make that much of a difference. But we're going to change the font size as well in just a minute. Let's change the the text to a placeholder 0000, and let's change the font size maybe to 36. And then this is where our image starts to get a bit unusual. So maybe we do want to fill vertically on the screen. Let's change this image name to screen. There we go. So if you're ever losing track, or if I'm going a little bit too fast, I hate clogging up videos with an hour's worth of UI just not to do anything, and it's all design. Please keep an eye on my hierarchy. Pause the video, rewind, and just keep track of what I'm doing. I'll try and explain as much as possible, but if you lose track, I don't want to go too slow on this, because again, it will clog up the video. Right, so we've got basically where we want the text. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to rename the text block, the zeros, to code text. And I always mess up some capitalization somewhere, but I also want to tick that it is a variable. With this ticked, it allows us to see it in the graph, and we can edit it a little bit better. Okay, so after we've got the code text, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of close this overlay just for a second, and I'm going to look for a spacer. We're going to add a spacer in the vertical box, and I don't want it in the, oh, there it is. So with the spacer selected, we're just going to make it a little bit chunkier. So we'll do 25, just to make sure that the keys that we're about to add don't sit too close to the screen, because I think it looks a little bit unusual. Okay, so for the buttons, now the buttons are obviously nicely aligned in sort of like columns and rows, and there's a really neat panel for that, and it's the uniform grid panel. This just keeps everything organized for you automatically. Now, it doesn't look like much at the moment, but what we're going to do is we're going to grab a button and chuck it on the grid panel, and we're going to chuck a text inside the button. Okay, now this bit is going to be tedious, so I will do a couple. I'll pause, and then I'll come back when the rest are done. But I'm just going to copy and paste effectively, and it is a bit tedious, and I don't want to again clog the video up with junk. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the first row, and then I'll do the rest of the buttons sort of paused. So button 1. So if we rename this. By the way, you can press F2 on your keyboard. That's a shortcut for renaming. Just select the field that you want, press F2, and you see that it brings you back up. So button 1, just have it like that. Go to the text block and change the text to 1, and it should be vertically and center aligned, so you should be okay. And I think we want to, center align and vertically align. I'm not too sure. We'll find out in just a minute. What we want to do is, with the button selected, now we've got these numbers set up, is Control and D for duplicate, and it's copied exactly the same. So we want to F2, change this to button 2, just like that. Go down to the text, change the text to 2, and you can see that they're on top of each other. So if you go over to the button and you click on the right arrow, they're now uniformly spaced. So if we do this a third time, as you may have already guessed, let's go back into rename, change that, select the text, change that to number 3. They're on top of each other again, click on that. So you can see that you're getting this sort of uniform effect. Now, what we can do is we can select all of these buttons and... Oh, as if it doesn't let you do that anymore. You might, oh, sorry. You have to press Control and click the individual buttons. If you select multiple of the same type, it allows you to change the values. So I'm going to do something like that. Maybe that's pretty neat. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the uniform grid panel, select that, and we can say here, like, do we want padding? So yes, I want 5 padding, so it just brings the buttons in a bit away from the edge, maybe a little bit more, maybe 10. But I also want to space each slot, if you will. So let's add some padding to the slots. So we've got 5, and that puts a nice uniform amount of padding around the buttons. I think that looks really good. So effectively, what we're going to do now is we're just going to duplicate the next button, and we're just going to press it down. Oops, missed that. Just going to press down and left, left. So now we've got button number 4, and as you've probably assumed, we're going to do this for the rest of the numbers. So I'm going to pause just for a sec, get all this sorted, and then I'll meet you back. I'll meet you back here, I guess. Okay, so we're back. So as you can see, what I've done is let's have a look. What I've done is I've added all the rest of the buttons. So I've given them all their unique numbers. So button 5, text 5, button 6, text 6. But then on the bottom row, I've also added confirm, 0, and clear. So the text obviously for confirm is just confirm, but I am going to reduce the font size down to 12, just so it doesn't look as weird. But I also want to fill vertically on the button, not the text. So let's go back to the button and fill vertically, and that should just fill that gap the same as the rest. So I'm also going to select the button itself, not the text, and change the color of it to, whoops, let's return that back to what it was. Change the background color, sorry, to a greeny color. And then for clear, we're also going to do the same. So I've just abbreviated confirm to CFM and clear to CLR. Again, let's change the font size down to 12 and change the button to vertical fill. And just change the background color to red. Let's just do that manually. Tab out of that. Let's give it a slight. I don't want it to be red, but I don't want it to be. No, that'll do. That'll do. Okay, so that's pretty much it. What you can do is, if that's too close, you can either reduce the size of your size box, or you can add a bit more to the spacer to sort of give you a bit more space from that. You could add a spacer before the overlay at the top, just to bring the screen down a bit. So let's pop that in. Whoops, where did that go? Let's pop that. Where do these keep disappearing to? So there's let's grab this spacer here and let's just pop it up at the top. I guess that doesn't like that, maybe because it's an overlay. But something is not quite working for this. So there we go. Let's click these arrows instead and move it up the hierarchy, up to the top. And let's pull that down a little bit. So there we go. I like that. Maybe 25. Let's keep it a little bit uniform. Obviously, you can change the size of your screen, add some more padding, do other stuff. But really, that's pretty much it for the visual aspect of it. Now, when it comes to the buttons, this is where it starts to get a little bit tedious again. Obviously, each button is going to need an event. So let's delete that. So button 0, on pressed. Button 1, on pressed. Button 2, on pressed. Button 3, on pressed. Button 4, on pressed. Button 5, on pressed. Now, obviously, we're going to need to do this for all of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk through what we need to do. Let's do the first one, and then we're just going to rinse and repeat. Again, I'm going to pause just to save the video from being 2 hours long for no reason. So what we need to do. Each of these numbers, if I press the number 1, I want the first digit to become number 1. Then when I press number 2, after number 1, I want the second digit to become 2. Then I want the third digit to be number 3, and then I want the fourth digit to be number 4. And then if I press a fifth number, the way I like to do it is I want it to sort of carry back around and reset the first one. So the fifth one becomes 1 again, the sixth becomes the second one again, the seventh, and you can see the pattern. Effectively, keep clicking numbers, and the sort of number keeps rolling around on itself. Now, to do this, the way I found the best to do is to make an array. So it's probably easier if we just get ahead with it and then sort of explain it once we can see it. So let's inside the graph, let's add a variable, and the variable is going to be input code array. You don't have to put array, but it clarifies what it is. It's going to be an array of integers. Integers are just single-digit numbers without decimal places. And then if we come down to the variable type, we can click on this little bean and change it from single to an array. Hit compile just to sort of lock that in. And if we scroll down, we'll see this default value. There's 0 array elements. Now, if we press this 4 times, because we've got 4 digits in our code, you can see now that we've got sort of 4 integers, 4 separate numbers all on their own. So you can see they go up incrementally. So index 0 is 0, index 1 is also 0, so we can change this to 1, and index 2 to 2, and index 3 to 3. Okay, so we've got an array here, and when we press this button, I want to set the first one to whatever number it was. So this would be arguably I don't want button 0 at the top. So when I press number 1, I want to set the first array element to 1, and then when I press button 2, I want to change the second one. Okay, so how are we going to do that? So what we want to do is, because we've got buttons, we need to do it kind of manually. So let's drag out this input array. What we'll say is we want to set an array element. Okay, so this node takes in an array, so the array of codes. So we know our array has 4 elements, and it's the 4-digit code. And the first time we press it, we want index 0, so that's true. But then when we press the second button, we want the index to be 1. So what we should probably do, we're going to need to sort of incrementally go through this array. So let's promote this index to a variable, and let's just change the name of this to current index, just like that. And obviously we're going to be pressing button number 1. Let's connect these up. When we press button number 1, obviously the number we want assigned to this index is going to be number 1. And then obviously if we just duplicate that, number 2 is purely going to be, I'll tell you what, let's just copy the whole lot. Put this in. I'll get to this index in just a sec, but effectively we're going to rinse and repeat all of these. All of this is going to be the same. We're just going to have to copy everything you've got there all the way down, but changing the item. So if you press 3, item's going to be 3. Press 4, item's going to be 4. But this bit's always going to be the same. However, obviously that index is not going to change. So if we ran this now, well, nothing would happen right now because we're not telling the input code array to display on the actual screen, which we'll sort that out in just a minute. Every time we press the button, we want this index to change. We want it to add 1 each time. So what we can do is, let's grab our current index, and let's say every time we press this button, we add 1 to it. So if you do ++, you'll get an increment int. So every time we press this button, add 1 to the index. So it will start at 0, then when we press this button again, maybe, the index will be 1, then it'll be 2, then it'll be 3, then it'll be 4, but we don't have 4 elements, so it's going to be looking for something that doesn't exist. So we need to know how big this array is, so we don't go past it. So grab our input code array, get that, and what we want to do is we want to get the length of it. Now, if you get the length of an array, it will report back how many items are in that array. So for us, it will come back and say 4. Now, the problem with 4 is our indexing starts at 0. So this comes back and says you've got 4 items in this array. So if we said, well, when this index gets to 4, stop, or go back to 0, that would be wrong, technically, because we really, when it gets to the third one, we want to reset it, because we don't have a fourth element, so we'd be looking for something that doesn't exist. So let's get the length of the array. Let's minus 1 from it, like that. So we're going to get 3. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, if this current index becomes greater than 3, let's just get rid of this for now. If it becomes greater than 3, branch, if that happens to be true, let's set our current index, so drag this out, set. Let's set our index to 0, so we go back to the beginning. If it's not greater than 3, then we're going to increase it. So every time we press the button, now we are, let's plug this together, it's not going to do anything. Every time we press the button, now what's going to happen is it's going to go, is the index bigger than my length? No, it's 0. Alright, increase it then. And then when we get to the third one, we're going to click it again. And we're going to go, hang on, is the index bigger than 3? Oh, yeah, it's 4 now. Right, well, don't. Set it back to 0. So we've created a loop. So our index is dynamic as well, actually, because if you make it a 5-digit code or a 6-digit code, this is always going to work. But the thing that's going to make this look messy is we're going to have to connect everything to it. So you could, if you want to, you could highlight all of this and collapse this to a function. And let's call this update array index. There you go. So everything, we're going to have to duplicate this a lot, and every one of these. So for the next number, duplicate. Whoops. Oh, okay. Let's duplicate it. Bring that down. Obviously, don't forget this is button 3, so this is going to be number 3, just there like that. And then we're going to have to connect this into that. Hit compile, and what we'll do is we'll just go through the rest of these. I'll just pause, go through the rest of these, and then we will come back and we'll get the screen to actually display what code is has been generated. Is in the array. Okay, so that's all done. Obviously you can see that here. So as we go through each button, so 5 presses 5, 4 presses 4, 3 presses 3. And then what they also do is they all connect to this update array index. Okay, that's great. That's great and all, but at the moment our display doesn't actually show us what numbers we've got going on. So this is kind of pointless. So obviously we've got our code just set here. Now what we're going to do is let's bind this. So let's create a binding. And I'm going to create, so at the moment this has created this get code text function. I'm just going to rename that to update and then code text, just like that. Just make it a little bit more appropriate. And what we want to do is we want to take the index, the array, the code array, and we want to get each item in this array. So obviously we want to get index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, and then sort of combine all these together into a text, and then obviously that's going to update. So what we can do is, if you've ever used arrays before, you may be familiar that you can get a copy of whatever's in a particular index in the array. So in this array, index 0 is going to be 0, and then 1 is going to be 1, and 2 is 2, 3, and so on and so forth. So we can be a little bit cheeky and just say, well, why don't we just get one of each number? Now, knowing this is a 4-digit code, you can get away with this. So this is quite a manual process. What you could do, oh, that's not what I want. So, I think if you did sort of like a 5th one like that and connected it and told it to get a number that doesn't exist, I'm not too sure what would happen. So I'm not too sure how to grow it, but we've got a 4-digit. If you know you've got a 4-digit number or a 5-digit number, I'm pretty sure you're not going to change it on the fly in this scenario. So this way is going to work. But I didn't think about that. But if you do run into a scenario where you might need to change the code length at runtime, leave a comment down below and I'll think about a way around that. But I think that's going to be such a small amount of people that might need that, if anybody. That I'm not going to consider about it now, but I might jot it down. Anyway, so we've got this input array, and in index 0, we're going to get a number, and then index 1, so let's change that to 1, and then in index 2, and then in index 3. So here we're going to get each of the numbers. Now, what we need to do is we need to convert this to a string. So if you type in toString, you will convert that. Duplicate that, and let's connect all of these up. Duplicate one more time, connect that there. Duplicate one more time, connect that there. And then obviously we need a text, so let's add all these numbers together. So you can do an append. Add a couple more pins. So add that to that, add that to that, add that to that. And then obviously, so now we're getting the first number, the second number, the third number, and the fourth number, or in index terms, 0, 1, 2, 3. We're adding them in a sequence together, so that's going to spit out our full number, but as a string. So we just need to plug, this return value into there, and it'll convert it into a text for us. Hit compile, and we won't be able to check this just yet because we need to add this to the screen, but because that's a binding, that's going to update instantly as soon as something changes. So we've got this updating code, and we've got each button cycling through and changing what numbers in each box. So let's go to our sliding door now, because we need to actually add this this thing to our screen. And just thinking about it, before we go ahead, we need to really center this code box because we don't want it to pop up in the top corner. Now, because we've put the size box on top of a canvas panel, the size box will have an anchor, and the good thing about this is we can anchor it to the center and tell it, wherever you are on the screen, let's stay in the center. So that's the benefit of using a canvas slot, is that you can tell it where you want it to be, which is really neat. But let's change the anchor to be the center, and then set the position to 0 and 0. But then you've noticed it's based on the top corner. So if you change the alignment to 0.5 and then 0.5, this is directly in the center of the screen. And the good thing about this is no matter what your screen size becomes, it'll always be centered. So that's really neat. That's why I like to do this, especially using the anchors, because it keeps your UI looking consistent. But what I want to do is I actually want to push it up a little bit. So I'm going to minus 100, just so it's not directly in the center, but it's just above center. Hit compile, and no matter when we add this to the screen, it's going to look right now. Let's go back to the sliding door, and I want this to pop up when we first overlap the box. So let's disconnect this. So if we overlap and we are a character, what do we want to do? We want to create a widget. So this widget is going to be our code lock. So let's find our code lock and compile. So great. So we're going to create this widget, but we're not adding it to our screen. Now, it might seem like when you create one, it should add it to the screen automatically. You don't. You can create it and not add it to your screen for a while, or you can add it directly to your viewport straight away, which is what we're going to do because we don't really need to mess around with anything. So I'm just going to add that to the screen. Great. Let's press play and see what happens. Purely just for testing, I'm going to press save. Let's just see if anything happens. So we run over and boom, we've got a code lock. Right, now great, let me click on something. It doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? It's because the game is expecting you to use the mouse to point the camera around. So we need to specifically tell it, no. There's a piece of UI that I want to click on now. So we need to change the UI mode. So to do that, we need to talk to the controller, the player controller. So get player controller, and oops, if you can spell it right, and the controller handles all of your input events, pretty much. If you move the mouse and if you press a key on the keyboard, the controller has something to do about it. So within the controller, we can say set UI only mode. So this is saying there's a widget, and we want to be able to click on the UI only. So do that thing. So do we want to focus on a particular widget? Yes. So we can just drag this into the return value of this one. And if you want to make it look a little bit prettier, you can add a couple of reroute nodes just by double clicking on the line and add these little nodes. I'm going to leave a gap quite purposely. You'll see why in just a minute. Tell you what, let's move that out. Okay, so let's connect that up. So our controller, which is going to handle this, and then the widget that we want to focus on, just like that. Hit compile, hit play. So let's go over here and so I can see the buttons changing, but I can't see my mouse. So that's not. Oh, now I can. But my mouse was sort of like invisible for a second until I clicked. So again, from the player controller, we can do show cursor. So set show cursor and have that set to true. That way that the mouse is visible. Now obviously if you're doing something like VR, which was the case for Jay, who suggested this idea. You're on your own, buddy. I don't know what button to. I don't know what to do in that instance. Hopefully, if you're making a VR game, you'll know what to do. But I think you've always got a pointer around. I think you might just have to set the UI mode again, maybe. But you might not need to show the cursor. But for us with mice, we do. We need to set that. Okay, so we've set the UI mode, and we're pretty much ready to click. But the other thing, which I'm not going to test to show you, but effectively, if you run into the door, the your character keeps moving in the direction that you was pressing, because your movement gets locked by the fact that a UI is opened. It's weird, but the best thing to do is to get the controlled pawn and disable input. Disable input. Like that. We also need a reference to the controller, so like that, just like that. And plug that in there. So I like to line stuff up, so let's move that like that. And I'll tell you what we can do. Let's pop that like that, drag that into there so it looks a bit neater. And pop that like that. Okay, so we're going to overlap the box. It's going to show us a widget. It's going to show our mouse. We're going to be able to click on it. And we're also going to disable the input of the character so we can't run away whilst we're on here. So here goes nothing. So I'm going to press 9999 and we should get 9s going across the screen. 9, 9, 9, 9. Very good. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Very good. Okay, I like that. That works just as expected. But what if I want to clear it and I want to wipe all the previous bit away? Now let me just check what just happened there. 9999, and then if I press 1 I should get 1 straight away. Click. Okay, so I thought that was the case. So there's a bit of a delay, and I think I know why. I think I should have used a greater than or equal than. So in the update array index, we do, yeah, there we go. So instead of a greater than, we want a greater than or equal to. Pop that in there like that. Oh, it's the wrong way around, so let's switch these around. So if the index is greater than or equal to the length, it's true. We'll do that. Compile. Let's just test it again. So we go 9999, and then if I press 1, it should be immediate. 1. Perfect. Okay, so we've got that updating. Obviously we need a code to compare it to. Now, just to be cheeky as well, we also need a way of cancelling coming out of the screen or clearing the array. So if we go back to our event graph and we've not added our clear buttons yet, so let's do the clear button from the left and on pressed. Let's bring this up to the top so we don't have to go miles away for it. So here we go. So when we press clear, what do we want to do? So we've got this code array, and obviously down below here we set it an array element. Now we don't want to go through and change. We don't have to press clear 4 times to get zeros all the way across. So we can just do a 4 each, and this will loop through every item in the array. So obviously the array is 4, so this will loop 4 times, and every time we loop through this, we want to set an array element. Now, what array element do we want? We want this one. And again, just to be awkward, I'm going to make it look a bit nicer. And what index do we want? So the index, we can use this loops index, so it's going to go through and go, I'm at index 0, change this one. I'm at index 1, change this one. And if we leave it defaulted to 0, when we press the clear button now, it should set everything to 0. Now, what we also want to do, let's say we get halfway through our code, we make a mistake, we press the clear button, and then we start sort of typing our code in one more time. We don't want the index to resume halfway through, so let's also add the current index and set that to 0, just like that. Hit compile and play, run over, and at the moment it's 1, 2, 3, hit clear, and it resets it to 0. If we type number 1, it starts at the beginning. So that's our code log. Pretty neat. Now, also, obviously we do all this, we set it to UI mode, we disable the input and all that sort of stuff. You might want to do the opposite of that afterwards. Now, because I've stupidly twice now, I have not included a close button. Please add a close button to yours and sort of have it properly. But for this video, because I've done it again, I thought to myself, I'm going to add a close button, but I haven't. I'm going to set the clear button to close. So that's how the clear button works by default, but mine's a little bit different, and I'm going to make mine close the UI at the same time. So untick show cursor. I need to change this UI mode to set to game only. I think it might be game and UI by default, but I'm probably so. And instead of disable input, we actually want to enable input. We don't want to disable it. It'd be pointless, won't it? Okay, and then there's actually one more thing that we need to do. Squeeze that over. We need to remove the code from the screen, the code lock. So let's do remove, from parent, like that. So that's going to remove the widget from its parent, which is going to be the screen that you use. So show cursor, set the UI mode back to game, enable input, and remove the widget from the screen. Let's test that. Let's run over, press clear. There you go. The UI disappears. So don't get the code, bugger, and then we go and run off. Brilliant. So we're not going to do the confirm button just yet because we don't have a generated code to confirm. So let's go back to our slide door now, and what we're going to do is we're going to generate that code.